everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and what a show we've just seen. We have just watched AEW Revolution with some huge matches, some huge results, and we're going to break everything down for you right now because this is what happened at AEW Revolution. So I'll briefly go over the one pre-show match, which was SCU, Scorpio Sky and Frankie Kazarian taking on the Dark Order, represented by their original incarnation, Evil Uno and Simon Grayson. This was a pretty good match, especially for the pre-show. It got quite a lot of time and there were swings in momentum, nice near falls and stuff like that, but it was mainly more about the post-match shenanigans. For what it's worth, the Dark Order did pick up the victory, and it came quite abruptly actually, with Evil Uno blindsiding Scorpio Sky from behind with a big clothesline, the big sort of lariat thing to the back of his head, and that was enough for Grayson to roll over and pick up the pinfall victory. But as I mentioned, this is all about the post-match angle, because all of the Dark Order start beating down the baby faces. That's Uno, Grayson, some of the minions as well, and also Alex Reynolds and John Silver. And so who should come to save the day but Chicago's favourite son, not CM Punk, Colt Cabana. Boom boom, he's here to try and save the day at least. He comes out, starts hitting a few elbows, everyone's taking bumps, but eventually the numbers game is too much for him, the big silly goose. In fact, I was surprised that Cabana was overwhelmed. He had a stats boost from bringing his hometown of Chicago, Illinois, but yes, as I mentioned, unfortunately, it wasn't enough. And then to make things worse for SCU, some spooky music hits the arena. Could it be the Exalted One coming to reveal themselves? And out from the back comes a mysterious figure looking quite a lot like the higher power from the Attitude Era. He unveils himself, he rips off the cloak, and it's Christopher Daniels, whom SCU had told before the match to wait backstage. So it looks as though Daniels has betrayed his friends. He charges towards the ring and attacks the Dark Order. It's a fake swerve. Daniels was the good guy all along. It turns out this was a pretty funny nod to those rumours that Daniels was supposed to be the higher power back in the day, until it was of course revealed, quite hilariously in fact, to be Vince McMahon. With the help of Daniels, the babyfaces clear the ring and SCU pose with Colt Cabana to start the show, and it's all very happy, you know, the babyfaces stand tall, but the Dark Order won and they received the winner's purse, don't they? So the joke's kind of on you guys, SCU. Next up, the first match of the main show, and it's Jake Hager making his in-ring AEW debut against Dustin Rhodes. Hager comes out and just gets off with his wife in the front row for a long time to get heel heat, stalling, very good stuff, poses on the ropes and everything, everyone's booing him as commentary hype up his undefeated MMA record. And then here comes Dustin Rhodes unveiling a t-shirt that reads, "I came here to beat up Jericho's bitch." This is mostly a hard-hitting brawl with some nice exchanges back and forth. It's pretty good stuff. A quite impressive debut for Jake Hager. More high energy than maybe we're used to seeing him. It's good to see him really motivated and fresh once again. Maybe that time off from in-ring competition has done him a lot of good. And at one stage during his spell of dominance in this match, Hager goes back out the ring to chat to his wife in the front row, but he distracts himself, and that allows Dustin to come along and boot him down to the ground. And then he turns to Hager's wife. She goes to slap Dustin. He catches the blow, and then in a bit of an outdated spot in 2020 really, especially for a babyface, he forces a kiss upon her, and everyone's like, yay! And I'm like, But we move on from that. Thankfully it wasn't the finish or anything, it didn't lead to the finish of the match, and later on the real finish came after a bit of a submission battle. So Hager falls victim to an armbar attempt. He's getting caught in the armbar, but transitions out because he's an MMA expert and locks Dustin in the ankle lock. Dustin rolls through and gets out of that, but almost sends Hager flying into the referee. They tease a ref bump. It doesn't quite happen, but it distracts the ref long enough for Hager to gain control with a big low blow, and then he locks in kind of a head and arm choke, and Dustin passes out pretty quickly actually. He doesn't submit, he's just out cold, again hammering home that whole MMA aspect of Hager's character. And yeah, Jake Hager picks up a big win on his debut. Just before the next match, we get a video package announcing an upcoming, can't remember what they called it, like a blood and guts match or something. It's War Games. The tagline is like 2 rings, 1 cage, you know the rest. And I cannot wait to see what that is. I'm assuming it's going to be like the Inner Circle or some kind of collective of heels against Cody and friends, because Cody's not going to pass up the chance to be in that match surely. But yeah, we'll see what it is. But I absolutely cannot wait. Next up, a very different kind of match from the slightly slower paced, hard-hitting brawl between 2 big guys. We now have the lightning fast exchange between the death-defying Darby Allin and the also death-defying but detestable at the same time, Sammy Guevara. Before the bell, as he's completing his entrance, Darby Allin decides, no, I'm just going to go straight for this, and just wipes out Sammy on the outside with a huge suicide dive. He doesn't let up there, he drapes Sammy over the crowd barrier, heads back in the ring, and goes for another dive, and kind of misses terrifyingly. I think his feet catch the top rope on the way through between the top and middle ropes, and I think he might just brush Sammy, but mainly just face plants the floor. It's really scary for a second, but thankfully he seems to be okay. Sammy turns the tide by hitting Darby with his own skateboard. Again, the match hasn't officially started yet. The ref's trying to get them back in the ring, but the bell hasn't rung. And then Sammy, oh my god, I nearly forgot about this. Sammy sets up a table on the outside, lays Darby Allin on it, heads up top, and hits a 630, a picture perfect 630 through the table to absolutely crush Darby Allin. Sammy gets in the ring and Darby, crawls, he drags his broken body into the ring, and obviously as soon as the bell rings, Sammy is just on him for most of the match, dominating proceedings, but unable to quite put the resilient Darby Allin away. Allin is very much clinging on here by a thread. At one stage, they head up top and Sammy hits just a terrifying avalanche Spanish fly. Somehow they keep control. He was balancing with one leg on the top rope at one point and almost fell to the outside, but they managed to regain position and Sammy nailed the big avalanche Spanish fly for just a 2 count though. Sammy decides to resort to cheating. He exposes one of the turnbuckles, he rips the pad off, but it's Darby who sends Sammy into that turnbuckle, then hits the Stundog Millionaire and then the coffin drop, and that's enough for Darby Allin to pick up a big victory and presumably to end this little grudge the two had going on. Little grudge, I say. I mean, they were absolutely demolishing each other in the build-up to this one. Next up, what a match this was, honestly. It has a strong argument for being the best match in AEW history, maybe. I think it's between that and Cody versus Dustin from Double or Nothing. This was an incredible match. It was the Tag Team Championship match between the champions, Hangman Page and Kenny Omega, and the challengers, the Young Bucks. A big reason for this match's success wasn't just the match itself, although that was absolutely incredible, but it was the storytelling they were able to implement in the match thanks to the wonderful build, with Hangman becoming gradually more disillusioned, the Bucks becoming gradually more cocky and dismissive of him, Omega being torn between the two. This was just a superb build, and it all paid off in the end. I thought I was in the minority viewing Hangman as the babyface of this feud, but I'm immediately proven wrong at the start of the match, because when the Bucks are doing their pose at the start, they get so much heat. It's wonderful to see. Hangman is way too intense and way too fired up to start this match. He's kind of out of control, so Kenny makes him start the match on the apron. Kenny is the legal man, and he and Nick Jackson wrestle around for a bit to a stalemate, and then give each other a handshake and a fist bump, and then Kenny tags in Hangman and Nick tags in Matt. Now it gets really intense. Everybody's waiting to see what Hangman will do. He and Matt wrestle around again to a stalemate. Matt offers the handshake and Hangman just spits in his face instead. This develops into an excellent match for the next, in total I think the match went just over half an hour, and it didn't feel like it one little bit. This match flew by because it was just so expertly put together and expertly performed as well. There are all the standard sort of, the crazy exchanges and fast-paced moves and everything you'd expect from a match involving these four men, but the real brilliance of it, as I mentioned, is in the psychology and the storytelling. At one point, very intriguingly, Matt Jackson is kind of getting the better of Hangman Page, so Hangman turns the tide with, see if these moves seem familiar to you, he fakes a super kick to the head, Matt covers up, and he blasts him in the knee instead, and then he does even the little twirl and everything, calls for it, and clamps on the chicken wing. That's right, he's using Marty Scurll's moveset to get an advantage. Very, very interesting stuff there. Nick Jackson saves Matt from the chicken wing with a nice springboard 450, just a casual springboard 450 into the ring, and yeah, that was a big talking point in hindsight. Matt and Hangman brawl on the ramp outside, and Matt Jackson hits some incredible, his bridging Northern Light suplexes, and then he backflips into another one and everything, but he shows incredible strength here, because that ramp is on a bit of an incline as well. He's got a lot of work to do, and he absolutely nails it. He then sets Hangman up, and Nick gets up on the top rope, and they nail him with the Indie Taker on the outside, and for now, Hangman is totally out of the game. The Bucks get in the ring, and Kenny's on his own, isolated 2-on-1 against his friends, and Matt Jackson is now urging Nick to be as ruthless as he is, and they take turns blasting Kenny with super kicks, and then a double Kamigoye knee strike, which was the double team finisher used by Kenny Omega and his best friend Kota Ibushi as the Golden Lovers in New Japan. This proves to be a big mistake because it doesn't finish Kenny off, it does quite the opposite. It just fires him up. He kicks out at 1 and the crowd come absolutely unglued. But the Bucks regain control eventually with another big double super kick. They set up Kenny Omega for the Meltzer driver, but Hangman's there to drag Nick off the apron just in time and slam him through a table on the outside. Now the tables are turned and it's 2-on-1 against Matt Jackson. Kenny and Hangman nail him with their double team finisher, the buckshot V-trigger combination, but Matt kicks out at 2. So of course Kenny goes for the move that puts away everybody, the one-winged angel, but his shoulder is weakened by this stage of the match and he can't quite do it, and Matt manages to slip out. So then Hangman nails Matt Jackson with the one-winged angel. Oh, amazing scenes. 1, 2, Nick is back just in the nick, oh, no pun intended, just in the nick of time to break up the pinfall. I've really ruined an excellent piece of storytelling in this match with my own stupid jokes. Finally, Hangman nails a buckshot lariat and picks up the victory, retaining the titles for himself and Kenny Omega. But the drama is far from over. Everyone is just watching intently to see what happens after this match. Are they going to reconcile? Is someone going to turn on somebody? And the way they tease it is so superb and so subtle at the same time. So the Bucks kind of try and offer the olive branch, and Kenny sort of accepts it, and they all kind of reconcile in the middle of the ring. Hangman is of course reluctant. He just stays near the edge of the ring. He's leaning on the ropes, not really getting involved. Eventually he gets to his feet and stands up, and all 3 members of that trio of the original Elite, the 2 Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, look at Hangman, and they're all stood slightly to one side like that, as if they're going to blast him with a triple super kick. But it's a deliberate tease, and they just take a little step forward, and it doesn't happen. Again, Hangman rejects more offers of handshakes, and then, you know, the Bucks leave, and Kenny's in the middle of the ring. Hangman's on the outside now on the ramp, and he just holds onto the top rope, and it looks like he's going to go for a buckshot lariat to Kenny in the ring. But again, it's just a little visual tease. It's so well done. And with that, they head to the back, the champions. They've still got the titles, but this storyline is not done by a long shot, and it's so good. I cannot wait for the next installment. And on the whole, this was just an incredible match. Easily a 5-star match in my opinion. Following that, we had another title match, this time the women's world title match with the champion Nyla Rose defending against the challenger Kris Statlander, and I did not envy these 2 women one little bit, having to follow such an excellent match beforehand. And in fact, you could tell at certain stages for quite a lot of this match actually that the crowd were quieter than they ought to have been, because they were simply recovering from what they'd just seen. And again, it was a shame because both women put in a really big effort. It's a decent match. It starts off a little bit ropey with Statlander kind of slipping on an attempted kip up and a few little exchanges that didn't quite click as they should have, but thankfully things picked up as the match went on. The first really big moment is when Statlander goes for a suicide dive to the outside, but not to the ringside area, onto the ramp, but Nyla Rose moves and Statlander, just like Cody did, just hits the ramp hard, and it's quite a terrifying moment because we know what that did to Cody's face. Nyla then chucks Statlander back into the ring and nails her through the ropes with a nice diving spear, a bit like Johnny Gargano's spear, but it only gets 2. So a little bit later on, Nyla manages to nail her finisher, the Beast Bomb, and again, it only gets 2. What's she going to have to do to put the challenger away? Well, they head up top and Statlander regains control of the match with a really terrifying superplex actually, but she did really well despite being clearly off balance to keep the move safe, and thankfully both women crashed onto the canvas as they should have done. They fight back up top again, and this time Nyla Rose hits an avalanche beast bomb, another really scary looking move as well, but she also seemed to keep it as safe as she could have, and that's enough to put Statlander away and keep that title around the waist of Nyla Rose. That title's not fitting around anybody's waist. It's really too small, isn't it? Can we get a bigger belt, please? Actually, no, to be fair, it did fit around Riho's waist, didn't it? But we're reminded constantly of how little she weighs because that's what they talk about on commentary when Riho's there. Next up, we get the big grudge match that they've been building to for ages and ages between MJF and Cody. MJF is out with Wardlow, of course, by his side. Cody's entrance, man, he's got Downstate playing his theme tune live, he's got Brandi with him, he's got Arn Anderson with him, he's got a new neck tattoo as well with the Nightmare Family logo on it, and it just feels like a huge build-up to what should, in theory, be a huge match. And predictably, Cody is very fired up. After all the crap that MJF made him go through to secure this match itself, Cody just flies at him from the opening bell and dominates until MJF has to bail not only to the outside, but into the crowd crowd just to catch a breather. MJF resorts to working Cody's injured toe. He broke his toe in that steel cage match with Wardlow, and to be fair, it doesn't really turn the tide that much because Cody is just on too much of a roll, so Wardlow has to drag his man to the outside to help him recover. So Brandi goes over and throws a beer into Wardlow's face, and he stalks her down. She runs away, she hides behind Arn Anderson. Wardlow continues to walk along straight into the path of a suicide dive from Cody. It was all a plan, a cunning plan from the Nightmare family. Well done, everybody, well done. That might have been written on Arn's clipboard. MJF begins to turn the tide by working Cody's shoulder really relentlessly, and that sets him up for the Salt of the Earth, the Fujiwara armbar. Cody still manages to tough it out and crawl towards the ropes, so MJF grabs his other limbs as well, like a little Zack Sabre Jr. equivalent. So Cody, showing all that babyface grit and everything like that, he manages to get really close to the bottom rope and bite it to break the submission. So MJF goes back to the injured toe. He takes off Cody's boot, stands on the toe, and then at one stage bites the injured toe in just a brutal display of disgusting heel tactics. What awful little man. Wardlow tries to get involved again, so Brandi gets on the apron and dives on him, but he just catches her like it's nothing. So Cody's like, put her down, put her down. Wardlow does put Brandi down. Cody charges, like trying a big boot, but Wardlow moves out the way, and Arn Anderson catches the boot in the face. Poor Arn. A little bit later on, MJF takes off Cody's weight belt. He's about to whip him with it. The referee tries to get involved. The referee gets kind of spun around, I think, and behind the referee's back, Cody nails a low blow, grabs the weight belt himself. The referee turns back around and he's like, Cody, don't use that. And Cody's like, just let me have one. And the ref's like, that's MJF, we all hate him. Oh, go for it then. Bang, big whip by Cody, throws the belt into the crowd, and everyone is going wild. MJF is now cowering in the corner, but at some point he's managed to slip on the Dynamite Diamond Ring, but he doesn't use it. He instead begs at Cody's feet, he hugs his legs, he tries to hug him, he says I'm sorry for everything, he's crying. Cody's just not having any of it, and MJF spits in his face, and Cody is livid, nails a huge crossroads, and that should be enough, but Cody lets his anger get the better of it. Cody drags MJF up again, hits another crossroads, and then goes for a third one, and MJF's like that. He kicks or knees Cody in the head. Bang, big shot with the Dynamite Diamond Ring. He staggers to the ropes, takes it off, disposes of the evidence, and falls on Cody for the heartbreaking 3 count. And this is a heel victory done right. It does sap the energy from the crowd, but in a good way. MJF is victorious, but he's just dazed. He doesn't know where he is. His face is just a bloody mess by this stage. And as he leaves, Cody is recovering in the ring. Brandi and Arn are there by his side, and Cody is just devastated. He's telling people as he leaves the arena, I'm sorry. He's apologizing to individual people in the crowd as he leaves. This match was excellent. It wasn't, the kind of match that the tag team match was earlier, but it told a very strong story. All the pieces were in place to make it a great one, and I think the result was an important one too. A bold decision to have MJF pick up the victory, but I think probably the correct one once it all develops. Next up, the match we've all been waiting for. Orange Cassidy versus Pac. And the crowd are just so hyped that Orange Cassidy is in this match. There's holy S chants, there's, just every kind of chant you'd want imaginable, all in support of Orange Cassidy. He is, of course, accompanied by the best friends who are out with like a towel. They're like his corner men, and him and Pac, they square off in the middle of the ring to start things off. Orange goes for the big hands in the pocket spot. Pac just catches his wrists as they fall and goes, no, we're not having any of that. So Orange Cassidy just whips him around and hits a wrist lock takedown and then completes it himself. And the crowd go absolutely wild. Cassidy runs through all of his hands in his pocket spots that you may have seen in little GIFs and video clips online, or indeed if you follow promotions such as PWG, you'll have seen them. It's really good stuff. There's like a dive with his hands in his pockets, he's rolling out of moves and stuff, he's kipping up with his hands in his pockets. It's tremendously entertaining stuff, and it's so good because we haven't seen him do all of them in one go. We've seen little hints here and there, but it's great to finally see him just cut loose. And it's just being responded to in the best possible way. Major credit to the crowd here. But Pac, of course, cuts off Orange Cassidy as we knew he would, and just dominates for a little few minutes, and it's all looking quite bleak. He heads up top, nails an avalanche brainbuster, and covers Orange Cassidy. 1, 2, and then Pac makes a mistake. He pulls up Orange Cassidy's head and breaks his own pinfall attempt. You arrogant Newcastle man. He goes up top for the Black Arrow, but Orange Cassidy rolls away. So Pac gets down, goes up to the other set of turnbuckles, and Orange Cassidy rolls back the other way. And this goes on for a little bit until Pac gets out the ring and just glares at him through the bottom rope. And Orange Cassidy smiles back and just rolls slowly back in the other direction. It is genius stuff. And then the unthinkable happens. Orange Cassidy starts to actually properly try, hands out of the pockets this time. He's just going for it. He's hitting moves that we've not seen him hit yet. It's amazing. The crowd are going crazy for every single spot. He hits a Superman punch at one point. He hits a DDT like from the top. And Pac now has to roll himself out of the ring to catch a breather and to survive this onslaught from Orange Cassidy. It's irony at its very, very best. But just when it looks like Orange Cassidy is going to pick up the most unthinkable of victories, the Lucha Bros run out and resume their rivalry with the Best Friends, Pentagon and Phoenix. They attack Trent on the outside, the referees tell them to stop, and he leans through like the middle ropes, and then Chuck Taylor dives over the top of him onto the pile, and they all brawl to the back, but that leaves Orange Cassidy alone with Pac in the ring. And it's not long before Pac clamps on the brutalizer, and that's enough. Orange Cassidy submits, but this has elevated his stock a lot. This was a perfectly booked match, really well done, and who knows? I mean, the sky's the limit for Orange Cassidy, and I think it was probably the right call to give Pac the win, but man, Orange Cassidy comes out of this looking like $1 million. Well, he doesn't really put much effort in, looking like about $6.50, and that's just the way he'd want it. And finally, the main event, the big title match for the AEW World Championship between Jericho and Moxley. Moxley gets a long Goldberg-style entrance with the camera following him all the way from outside of the arena through the concourse into the crowd and to ringside, and it's so good. The crowd is so hyped for him. Jericho has a choir performing Judas, and he is out with his henchmen Santana and Ortiz. This one starts off like many Jericho matches these days actually. There's a brawl on the outside, around the ring a bit, into the crowd for a little bit as well, and then back to ringside. Jericho's pulling all of his usual heel tricks. He's grabbing the camera and flipping off the crowd. He's ringing the ring bell and declaring himself the winner ahead of time. All the things that Jericho does these days to kind of make up for the fact that he's gradually slowing down, but he can still very much go in the ring. Jericho really grabs an advantage early on by attacking Moxley's eye, the one that's not covered by the eye patch, and then powerbombing him through the timekeeper's table. And the ring bell was just right there on the table as well. It looked like a very nasty landing. But back in the ring, Moxley is well prepared. He reverses several lion tamer attempts, and they bring up on commentary his recent training with UFC legend Randy Couture in the build-up to this match. And then to the surprise of everybody, a little bit later on, it's actually Moxley who gets the lion tamer or the walls. He gets a Boston Crab locked in on the master of the move himself, Chris Jericho. It looks, in fact, like Jericho's not going anywhere and might have to give up. So Jake Hager runs out and Moxley has to let go of the hold and just decks him over the top rope. But Moxley turns around into a code breaker. 1-2, Moxley kicks out. But a little bit later on after that, Hager nails Moxley with a knockout blow from the outside of the ring. MMA background again, once more. They're still bringing that up with Hager. And I do like it. It makes him unique from everybody else on the roster. But unfortunately for the Inner Circle, the referee sees this and she ejects Hager, Santana and Ortiz from the ringside area. And as they're all being ushered out to a huge pop, here comes Sammy Guevara while the ref's distracted from the crowd. He grabs the title belt, nails Moxley with it, drops the belt on the outside, leaves, and he's gone through the crowd like a thief in the night. He's gone. Jericho crawls over. 1, 2, and thankfully Moxley kicks out again. Jericho is now a little bit desperate. He goes for Moxley's good eye, and Moxley is now totally blinded, but he manages to avoid the Judas effect back elbow and nails the paradigm shift, but he can't see, he can't make the cover. And then we get the signature moment that this match will be remembered for, Moxley removing the eye patch and revealing that that eye is healed and he can see perfectly fine now. Jericho is horror struck by this and charges straight into another paradigm shift. 1, 2, 3, and we have a new AEW World Champion. Jericho's beaten, he's got none of his friends around him, he leaves the arena in disgrace, as any good heel should. It's brilliant. Moxley cuts a slightly erratic but adrenaline-fueled babyface promo in which he gives credit to all of us, the AEW fans, for being the fuel that drives this company forward. And he says, I didn't win this belt belongs to everybody, which is lovely. What a baby, what a nice young man. This wasn't the best match, but it was what it needed to be. And it wasn't, the most thrilling match on the show either, but it was the most satisfying one. It was really, really good. The only decision really they could have made. And it's so good to see Jericho's reign finally end, which is a credit not only to Moxley and how popular he is, but what a fantastic heel Jericho's been for the duration of this excellent title reign. And that was it. That was AEW Revolution, which I think was an utterly fantastic show. It makes a very strong case for being the pay-per-view of 2020 so far, and I think might even be AEW's best show that they've ever put on in their admittedly short lifespan. But yeah, This was absolutely superb. So I hope you enjoyed it, and look out for mine and Sam's reactions, which will be hitting the channel very, very soon. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.